King Nahash of the Ammonites launched a brutal attack on Jabesh-Gilead, demanding a humiliating and life-threatening condition for peace. Faced with this impossible situation, the people of Jabesh-Gilead had to make a choice that would decide their survival. What would you do when faced with a life-or-death challenge? Would you shrink back in fear or step forward in faith, trusting that God could deliver? In this video, we'll uncover how Nahash's cruel siege led to a powerful moment of bravery and divine intervention. You'll learn how the people of Jabesh-Gilead, through their faith and unity, took a bold stand that would change their fate. Are you ready to discover how God uses moments of extreme challenge to reveal His power and purpose in our lives? Before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share these powerful lessons with more people who need to hear them. Let's dive into this dramatic story and see how it can inspire your own journey of faith. Jabesh-Gilead was a city located in the region of Gilead, east of the Jordan River. At the time of the attack by Nahash, Jabesh-Gilead was vulnerable due to its relatively isolated position and lack of strong defenses. The Israelites were living in a period of political and military instability, with the tribes of Israel still dispersed and without a strong, centralized leadership. This lack of unity made it difficult for Israel to defend itself effectively against external threats. The Israelites were divided, and their disorganization left them exposed to attacks from neighboring nations like the Ammonites. Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, was an ambitious ruler with plans to expand his territory. The Ammonites had long been hostile toward Israel, and Nahash saw an opportunity to weaken Israel by attacking one of its defenseless cities. With Israel's tribes scattered and without a unified force to resist, Jabesh-Gilead became an easy target. Nahash's military campaign was not just about conquest, but also about humiliating the Israelites, and Jabesh-Gilead was an ideal city to demonstrate his power and intimidate others. The city of Jabesh-Gilead, surrounded by the threat of the Ammonite army, found itself in a desperate situation. Nahash demanded that the citizens of Jabesh-Gilead submit to his rule, but his terms were cruel. He proposed that the people of the city could avoid total destruction only if they allowed him to gouge out the right eye of every man in the city. This barbaric demand was a way for Nahash to humiliate the Israelites and leave them weakened, unable to defend themselves in the future. The people of Jabesh-Gilead were in a life-or-death situation, facing the prospect of losing their dignity, their freedom, and perhaps their lives. In this desperate moment, the leaders of Jabesh-Gilead tried to negotiate with Nahash, asking for a delay of 7 days to seek help from the other tribes of Israel. They were hoping that someone would come to their aid, but the situation seemed grim. With no strong leadership yet established across Israel and the tribes divided, it seemed unlikely that any immediate assistance would come. The people of Jabesh-Gilead were left with little hope and were unsure if they could survive the cruel terms set by Nahash. At this time, the political and military weakness of Israel was evident. The tribes had not yet fully united under a single king, and the leadership was in transition. Saul, who had recently been chosen as the first king of Israel, was still in the early stages of his reign. This lack of a unified, strong leadership structure made it difficult for Israel to mount a defense against powerful enemies like Nahash and the Ammonites. Israel's fragmented state allowed Nahash to exploit this vulnerability and push Israel to the brink of defeat. The situation in Jabesh-Gilead was not just a military challenge but also a spiritual one. The people of Jabesh-Gilead, faced with such dire circumstances, needed more than just a military leader. They needed someone to rally them, inspire faith, and show them that God was still with them. This is where Saul, newly anointed as king, would step in, responding to the crisis with faith, courage, and action, ultimately leading to a miraculous victory for Israel. The events in Jabesh-Gilead became a turning point for Israel, showing the need for unity, strong leadership, and trust in God. Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, made a cruel and humiliating offer to the people of Jabesh-Gilead. Faced with the impending destruction of their city, Nahash offered them a chance to survive, but at a horrific cost. His proposal was that every man in the city would have to have one of their eyes gouged out. This would be a clear mark of disgrace, a sign of submission and slavery to the Ammonites. By accepting this condition, the people of Jabesh-Gilead would be left not only physically weakened but also humiliated, living as a conquered people under the cruel rule of Nahash. Desperate and unwilling to accept such a terrible fate, the leaders of Jabesh-Gilead tried to negotiate with Nahash. They requested a delay of 7 days, asking for time to seek help from other Israelites. This was their last hope, as they didn't know if they would be able to gather enough support in such a short time. Nahash, confident in his victory, agreed to the delay, likely believing that the Israelites would not respond in time. However, this brief window of hope was fragile, and the people of Jabesh-Gilead could only pray that help would come before Nahash's cruel terms became their reality. The people of Jabesh-Gilead found themselves in a terrible dilemma. On one hand, accepting Nahash's offer would save their lives, but it would come at the cost of their dignity, freedom, and honor. They would be forever marked by the shame of having submitted to such an act. On the other hand, refusing Nahash's terms would likely lead to the complete destruction of the city, with no guarantee of survival. The situation left the people torn between two equally painful choices: endure humiliation and live in disgrace, or face the possibility of complete annihilation. The desperation in Jabesh-Gilead was palpable. The people knew that if help did not arrive within the next 7 days, their fate would be sealed. With no strong leadership yet in Israel and the tribes divided, the chances of receiving help seemed slim. The hope that they had placed in this brief respite was fragile, and the people were left feeling helpless and vulnerable. This dark moment seemed like the end for Jabesh-Gilead, as they faced the unimaginable choice of either accepting slavery or seeing their city destroyed. The leaders of Jabesh-Gilead were fully aware of the dire consequences of either decision. They had to weigh the suffering of enduring the Ammonite demand against the destruction of their city and people. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on them. It was not just a military struggle but a moral and spiritual challenge for the people of Israel. Would they be able to rise above fear and shame to find a way out of this crisis, or would they fall into submission under the power of Nahash? In this moment of great peril, the people of Jabesh-Gilead placed their trust in the hope that help would come from outside. They sent word to the tribes of Israel, hoping that anyone, would rise up to save them. Their desperate plea was not just for physical deliverance, but also for a chance to preserve their dignity and independence as a people. The city's survival depended on whether Israel could unite and respond quickly enough, and this would soon become a defining moment for Israel's leadership and unity. Saul had recently been anointed as the king of Israel, but at this point he had not yet been deeply involved in military matters. His role as a leader was still developing, and he had not yet proven himself as a warrior. However, when Saul heard about the desperate situation in Jabesh-Gilead, he was deeply moved. The people of Jabesh-Gilead had sent a message to the tribes of Israel, asking for help against the Ammonites, and the news reached Saul. Seeing this as a crucial moment, Saul knew he couldn't stay passive. He decided to take action and defend the people of Jabesh-Gilead, even though it meant leading Israel into battle for the first time. Saul's decision to act was motivated by a combination of personal faith and a deep sense of responsibility for the people of Israel. His courage was awakened when he realized that the survival of Jabesh-Gilead depended on Israel coming together as one. Saul's faith in God became the driving force behind his actions. He understood that this was not just a military battle, but a spiritual one, as the people of Israel needed to unite and trust in God's power to overcome their enemies. Saul's willingness to lead in this moment became a symbol of leadership and unity for Israel, as he was stepping into his role as the protector of the nation. Saul's courage also marked a shift in his leadership style. He realized that it was no longer just about him, it was about the well-being of the entire nation. Saul sent a powerful and urgent message to the Israelites, calling them to rally together and march to the defense of Jabesh-Gilead. His message sparked an immediate response, and Israel's tribes, hearing the call for help, began to gather for battle. This swift mobilization demonstrated Saul's ability to inspire action and unite the people of Israel under a common cause, showing his growing strength as a leader. The response to Saul's call was quick and strong. Within a short period, Saul had gathered a sizable army ready to fight the Ammonites. The urgency of the situation and Saul's passionate leadership galvanized the people. Saul didn't just issue a command. He led by example, showing his commitment to the mission. As the Israelites assembled, their morale was lifted by Saul's leadership and the knowledge that they were not alone in this battle. The people of Israel were no longer paralyzed by fear. They had found a leader who was willing to step up and fight for them. As Saul and his army prepared for battle, the message of their approach reached Nahash and the Ammonites, who had been expecting Jabesh-Gilead to surrender. The Ammonites, overconfident in their victory, were caught off guard by Israel's sudden mobilization. Saul's timely intervention gave Israel a renewed sense of hope, and the threat that had loomed over Jabesh-Gilead was now being met head-on with the full force of Israel's army. Saul's leadership in this moment was a turning point for Israel, showcasing the power of unity and faith in the face of adversity. Saul's intervention in the battle for Jabesh-Gilead not only saved the city but also solidified his position as the king of Israel. His ability to lead Israel to victory against a common enemy proved that he was the right man to lead the nation. This victory, which resulted from Saul's leadership and the faith of the Israelites, became a defining moment in his reign. It showed that when a leader is willing to act in faith and courage, great things can be achieved, and the people will rally behind that leader. The decisive battle against the Ammonites was a turning point for Israel. Under Saul's leadership, the Israelites gathered their forces and launched an attack on the Ammonites, who had been threatening Jabesh-Gilead. The battle was fierce, but Saul's army was victorious, and the Ammonites were defeated. The people of Jabesh-Gilead were rescued from the cruel offer of Nahash, and they no longer had to face the humiliation of losing their eyes or becoming slaves. This victory was unexpected, as many had feared the worst, but it brought immense relief and gratitude to the Israelites, who celebrated their deliverance. This victory had a profound impact on Saul's leadership. Before this moment, Saul was still establishing himself as king, and many Israelites may have been uncertain about his ability to lead. However, by successfully leading the army into battle and securing such an important victory, Saul cemented his position as the true leader of Israel. His ability to unite the tribes, inspire courage, and deliver a decisive victory proved his worthiness as a king. Saul's leadership became undeniable, and this victory increased his support across the nation, strengthening his role as Israel's leader. The success in rescuing Jabesh-Gilead also highlighted the importance of unity among the tribes of Israel. Saul's call to action brought together the different tribes, showing that when Israel united under God's guidance, they could overcome even the most formidable enemies. This victory was not just about military success, it was a victory of unity and faith. Saul's ability to rally the people together was a sign that Israel, despite its divisions, could stand strong when it came together for a common purpose. The victory was also seen as a powerful confirmation that God was with Israel. Many Israelites believed that God had used Saul to bring salvation to Jabesh-Gilead, showing that even in the most desperate situations, God could raise up a leader to deliver his people. The victory over the Ammonites was a reminder that Israel's strength did not come from military power alone, but from God's support and guidance. This victory affirmed the people's trust in God's ability to work through faithful leaders to bring about deliverance. The message of the victory was clear. With faith in God and unity among the people, Israel could overcome any obstacle. Saul's leadership demonstrated that God could use imperfect people to accomplish his purposes. By trusting in God and working together, the Israelites were able to defeat their enemies and preserve their dignity and freedom. This victory also encouraged the people to trust in God's providence in the future, knowing that they could rely on Him in times of crisis. Overall, the victory over the Ammonites was a pivotal moment in Israel's history, as it solidified Saul's leadership and reminded the people that unity and faith in God could bring victory even in the most desperate circumstances. Saul's courage and ability to inspire his people became a model for future leaders, showing that with God's help, Israel could face and overcome any challenge. This battle marked the beginning of Saul's reign, and the victory became a symbol of hope and faith for the people of Israel. In conclusion, we have seen how Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, threatened the city of Jabesh-Gilead with a cruel and humiliating proposal. The people of Jabesh-Gilead were facing a life-or-death situation, but with the help of King Saul and divine intervention, the city was saved. Saul's leadership in rallying the Israelites and leading them to victory against the Ammonites solidified his role as the leader of Israel and showed that God could use a faithful leader to bring deliverance to his people. This story encourages us to reflect on the challenges we face in our own lives. Just like the people of Jabesh-Gilead, we all encounter giants in our daily lives, situations that seem overwhelming or impossible to overcome. However, Saul's example teaches us that when we trust in God and rely on His strength, we can face these challenges with courage and confidence. We don't have to face life's difficulties alone. God is always with us, ready to help us overcome even the toughest obstacles. Think about the challenges you are currently facing, whether personal, professional, or spiritual. How can you trust in God, just as Saul did, to help you navigate through them? When we face difficulties, it's easy to become discouraged or think we're alone, but Saul's victory over the Ammonites shows us that God is always ready to empower us to face and overcome our struggles. With faith and trust in God, we can rise above the challenges that seem impossible. Saul's victory wasn't just a military triumph, it was a reminder of God's faithfulness and power. When the Israelites trusted God and worked together, they were able to overcome a formidable enemy. This victory demonstrates that, no matter how big or small our challenges are, we can rely on God's strength to help us through. Just as Saul led Israel to victory, God calls us to lead with faith, trust in His guidance, and believe in His power to deliver us. Let this story be a reminder that with God, no challenge is too great. We are called to face our difficulties with the same courage and faith Saul had when he responded to the crisis in Jabesh-Gilead. We may not always have the answers, but we can always trust in God's timing and strength. Like Saul, we must lead with confidence, knowing that God is by our side, helping us navigate the toughest battles. To end, let us remember the powerful words of Saul in 1 Samuel 11 verse 13. But Saul said, "No one shall be put to death today, for this day the Lord has rescued Israel." This verse reminds us that when we trust in God, He will rescue us from any challenge. Our victory comes not from our own strength, but from God, who is always faithful to deliver us in the most difficult times. Trust in Him, and He will bring you through.